Okay. Mm. Okay. 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 Mm-hmm. Mm. Mm. Meaning to say, you want to know what obscene is? Is that what you're saying? Mm. Mm. Okay. So what's this, what? By the way, would you be familiar with the cyber crime law? What is that? What's a cyber crime? What constitutes a cyber crime? Because when you use the word cyber, that means the internet, right? It seems to me that the internet has become a virtual world, right? A virtual world. It's like another Cebu or another Earth, but in a different uh, dimension, if you want to, if you will, right? Somewhat on virtual or cyber crime. So crimes can actually be committed virtually, right? Online. So what is that? What's how do you define a cyber crime? Okay. Mm. I'm curious about use the word public beside morals. What does that mean when you say public morals? What do you mean?
You
Do you
mean
mean
the entire population of a place? Or do you mean like a certain group of people of a place? What does public morals mean? Do you mean like a majority, meaning to say 51% of the population? What's some of the definition now when you say when the
Public.
law uses words like public morals? Because words matter, words count, right? And so if you want to use certain words, then you have to know what it means. So when you say public moral, what does that mean?
Yeah, based on my own understanding, no, of how the Constitution defines public morals, it really has to do with the standards set in a particular society. So since it's the Philippine Constitution, it has to do with the standards set in the Philippines.
Mm-hmm.
And so I read a lot of the comments from critics, no, that are opposing the acquittal of Pura Luca Vega. And
Okay.
in the context of public morals here, if we were to relate it, it's defined, we can look at a religion rather, or religious beliefs as under uh, standardized norms or norms in society man. So
So no, wait. I'm talking. I'm asking about the word public. When you use the word public beside the word morals, what do you mean?
kana, what I understand from the Constitution is that when you say public morals, it has to do with the norms in society. So if it's the Philippine Constitution, so that means norms in the Philippines.
Okay, so I guess this is like becoming circular. What do you mean by norms? What does that mean? When does something become a norm? Because
Oh,
it looks like norms, public. You mean all, majority, right? Is that what you mean when you say public? Do you mean a majority? So if something is not understood or felt by or believed by a majority, does that still can you still say that's a public a good, a public good? Is it a norm? Maybe like only two people practice this, but it is a registered religion, for example. Does that mean that you can't say certain things because they are a religion and it's public morals, it's public norm not to offend any religion? Or is it just a religion that society favors, or is it a religion that a majority of the people of a certain society believe in?
Yeah, I think it really has to do with the majority also, but it's
Mm.
hard to, when you bring in religion, it's difficult because another constitutional right would be the right to religion. So even if it's a registered religion with only two believers,
Okay.
that's going to be a whole different ballpark. It's a
Mm.
different thing na put. But I like how you're, asking the question of like what constitutes a public moral. If
Yeah,
it's
correct.
only like how do we say it's majority? Are
Mm-mm.
there numbers we look into? So
Yeah,
I
exactly. Oh.
yeah, so the metric, I think there are metrics to look into that, no, but the fact of the matter is, the law does take into account, like what I understand, Jigiba, is that the law does take into account um what is accepted by majority, by the
Okay.
many, and when the law is ever changing, so depending on sa norms sad sa mga tao sa Philippines, so
Mm.
that would also dictate, how laws evolve over time. So
Mm.
that's why this case is kind of important,
Yeah,
okay?
yeah. It's a landmark case.
Landmark
Yeah.
case because it gives a lot of leeway to understand, no,
Mm.
what are the what are the constitutional guidelines GDI on
Mm.
how, when can we draw the line between creativity and when something offensive
Mm.
becomes against
Mm.
public
But
morals.
isn't that the point of art in the first place? Isn't it
Yeah.
to assault your senses? Isn't that the whole point? It is to make people ask.
What happened, Bella?
Isn't that the whole purpose of art?
Yeah, I like that you mentioned that. No, one of my favorite quotes is that art is meant to
Offend.
disturb the comfortable.
Exactly. Yeah.
I forgot who said that. Some artist said
Some
that.
some disturbed guy. Maybe Van Gogh. I don't know. Because he makes really disturbing art, right?
I forgot who said that, but I do believe that art is also meant to kanang make a conversation and to
Yeah.
disturb the comfortable. But I also believe that that's the reason why order and law exists. No, we cannot just
Order and law exists.
yeah. I
Okay.
also wouldn't want to discount the role of the law just because we want to be expressive. Still be guidelines because if we're just looking into that realm in itself of like we should be able to disturb the comfortable, like I think that's dangerous also. I don't know
What's
exactly.
what's dangerous about that? Isn't it more dangerous not to be disturbed? Isn't it more dangerous to just see the things the way they are forever? Isn't it better to be disturbed rather than seeing things the way they are forever?
I think it depends on the cost of like what's the true effect of being disturbed because if it's
No,
just being
wait. I think we're having a hard time agreeing what disturb means. What I mean by disturb is just by an artwork, right? By a work of art. We're not talking about a disturbed, actual traumatized person.
yeah.
Just to clarify, go ahead, continue. Sorry to disturb you.
Yeah, I think it would really depend because if an artwork is just meant to spark thought in an individual, I
Okay.
think that's okay. But it also depends on what is the content of that thought because if the content is also disturbing, um, like for example, Jiggy ha,
Okay,
if
give
we're
me an
gonna say
example.
that
Okay,
art,
good.
example, we're gonna say that art is meant to disturb the comfortable.
Okay.
So if we're gonna just solely base it on that argument and really be like, oh, that's what it's for, then that would somehow legalize how, for example, underage children should be exposed to disturbing
Mm.
art forms that might include themes that are not suitable for their age to understand.
Mm.
Kay, ano man, it's supposed to disturb the comfortable man. They're supposed to learn about it. They're
Mm.
gonna learn about the body sooner or later. So why not expose them to like pornography, diba? So
Mm.
if we're just, I feel like it's dangerous when we are so focused on that bitaw nga murag. It's meant to disturb the comfortable.
Well, first
So,
of all, it's just
Be
one. It's just one of the purposes and
Yeah.
the values of art. It's not just its sole purpose.
that's
This is
yeah.
one. Okay.
But I'm just
And
saying
and
there's danger in what I think is that there's danger in viewing art only in that way and when we think na um it should be that way nga murag yeah like we overlook mga guidelines safeguards because art is meant to disturb the comfortable.
well, actually, guidelines and laws are actually good for art because that way they know what to break, right? So, if, for example, I'll give you an example of somebody who knows her art, knows her guidelines. Madonna is a born and raised Catholic, right? Are you
Mm.
still there?
Mm, mm,
Yeah,
mm, mm.
so she knows Madonna, the pop star from the '80s, is Roman Catholic, right? And she knows,
Mm.
she understands the rules and regulations, the laws of her faith, right? So that's why her music is disturbing to a lot of people because there are a lot of Catholics, right? So what she did with her music was she actually pressed and pushed boundaries of what she understands. So nindot na siyang balaod para sa artist because now they know, si Baude ko di ay. So if this is not allowed, then I'm going to try to break that to stir some imagination, to stir the pot, right? To engage people,
Challenge.
to challenge them on whatever it is that the laws, the norms of that faith is. So rules are actually good for
Yeah.
artists because they know which ones to break.
Yeah, exactly. And I would also like to say that rules are not black and white. They're ever changing. So,
Correct, yeah.
um, like, I think over time, no, it's also meant to be malleable. And as I mentioned to you in our last conversation regarding this topic, there was this some scene from a film na I saw nga, this individual said na our forefathers or whoever wrote the Constitution is humble enough to know that we don't know everything.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't know everything when they wrote it. They wrote it in such a way that there should be leeway for change. It's not perfect. And so this case is an example of how a lot of people would argue, those who are siding with the acquittal would say nga, it was so vague man said good in the
Correct,
first
yeah.
place.
Okay.
This is a great opportunity then for our lawmakers, I feel like, to really revise tukion nila on how they can strengthen good ba or change up to fit the norms now and at the same time in a way that would serve us better in the future. So I like how you say laws are good, but it's also nice to acknowledge that they're also changing. Sometimes some laws that might seem good for now might not necessarily be applicable later. So
Mm.
I'm looking forward na lang siguro to like how they're gonna be able to use this case in adjusting
Mm.
the
You
laws
know,
now.
you know, I like that you use the word humility and humble, right? Because some people actually just use that word when it's their advantage. It's to their advantage, and not when it's not to their advantage. For example, if they believe in something uh, so completely and totally that they refuse to budge and refuse to move and nudge a little or move a little with their position, uh, a little humility would probably work for them, right? To have a more fluid and more productive conversation. But some of them, murag ilang mga pagtuo ba? I'm talking about usually politics, right? Nga ilang mga pagtuo kaning murag mo na gina siya. Like dili na mahitabo nga blah 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 nga ang imuhang gi-accuse sa ako ang akong belief sayop because I am sure nga mo ginahitabo, right? Kanang humility ba, some people use that but only if it's to their advantage, but they don't use that if it's their to their disadvantage. Why do you think that is the case? Why is humility just easily being used by everyone, but rarely do they use it?
Yeah,
I mean practice it, I mean, sorry.
yeah, I think it's much easier for us to say things and then um it's going to be difficult for us to practice not only humility, I think virtues and other values in general. It's so easy for us to portray that, right?
Mm-mm-mm-mm.
To say that we want to be this, we want to be that, but then putting the work to actually be that is difficult.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
it kind of reminds me of what I learned from you over the past
Yeah.
months, Jiggy, of
Mm.
being on the show. No, you told me sometimes it's a generational thing. Like
Mm.
I remember you were mentioning before it really depends good for some older individuals, like they have more experience in life.
Mhm.
So of course, although when they say their statements it doesn't sound like they're being humble, it's also because they know a lot, so marag it balances it out.
Mm.
Pero I think we meet people in all walks of life nga ingana.
Yeah.
That's why it's important that we have an open mindset. Kay you would always tell me also nga you cannot have any conversation with like a brick wall.
Mhm.
If someone is so close-minded, then
Mhm.
wala yun. Like, there's nothing that would come out of your conversation except for siguro magbaso lang mo on what that person thinks and what you think.
Mhm.
That's why, Jiggy, it's so important that our viewers and our listeners, top of the morning to everyone listening
Yes,
to us
please.
on
Yeah.
5.1.
Hi, good morning daw ni Nightcrawler. Hi, Nightcrawler. Hi, AJ Fester, Mr.
Wow.
J, Marikit Wise, and the whole crew. Thank you so much. I think this is on TikTok, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, top of the morning, guys. Nightcrawler, thank you for joining. He's always joining my TikTok lives. I'm glad to
Oh,
see him here.
okay.
And he's always joining our lives also. And
Oh.
I like how our the people who listen to us, they engage, no? So
Mm-hmm.
if now mga comments, guys, on you have questions that you want to ask our guest this afternoon,
Mm-hmm.
comment them or message us on Tops Media Center or text our numbers. Jiggy, I forgot our number na
Zero
Jiggy.
nine 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 887-6070. Okay. We're going to give
Okay.
prizes and merch to our most engaged listeners and viewers. So please engage. Okay. 0999-887-6070. Our countdown already began this Monday, right? So if you want to join us in our conversations, please do so. 0999-887-6070. Yesterday, we actually celebrated Independence Day, right? But I was telling everybody that we don't play music, we don't play local music just today. This is a way of life for us. A lot of radio stations are actually all of a sudden are become very nationalistic and very supportive of local music, which is beautiful,
Which
right?
is good.
Yeah, but
Which is good.
we don't do that only one day. We do it forever, every single day. It's
Yeah, I
Independence
like
Day for us every day.
every day at TMC. That's right. How did you celebrate your Independence Day rather yesterday,
I,
Gigi? I
s-
wasn't able
I
to join you.
celebrated it independently. No, we were having a conversation with another attorney Jingo Quijano
For the Double J.
of the Double J show and
Mhm.
the last round. That's the name of I think his a news article on Sunstar, I think, and we talked about the game, the Oklahoma City Thunder versus the Indiana Pacers. Game
Oh,
three, the Indiana Pacers defeated the Oklahoma City Thunder, and that's what we talked about. We kind of talked about Independence Day too as well. How about you, Justine? I never actually asked you this question. I don't know if you chimed in, but ikaw, like, unsa mo yun ang kaning, because Independence Day usually is a time when people display flags in their homes,
oh
in
yeah.
their businesses, right? In their cars, in their shirts, and whatever
Mhm.
they can.
On
They
their
dis-
social media accounts.
they display their love of country, their nationalism, their patriotism. Ikaw, Justin, kanang nationalism ba? The idea that we are one country, right? Uh, uh, do you think that it still is relevant? And if so, do you think in this day and age of individualism and globalism and tribalism that we should be even more nationalistic, or should we be less nationalistic and also factor in globalism, tribalism, and even individualism? Go ahead.
Yeah, that's a really good question. Where I feel like over time, as society progresses and as we have technological advancements and changes in everything and norms and the way that people think, and we're all trying to be global citizens. We're trying to keep up with other countries, keep up these
Okay.
relations. I feel like it is more important that we foster nationalism
Okay.
and more nationalistic,
Mm-hmm.
because I think that there's that pressing threat na when we're too much of a global citizen, you might forget your own national identity. So
Okay.
that's one thing.
Okay.
No, but I also want to acknowledge Manggod na, Murag, if you want to be competitive in the global market, all the more that you should be unique and grounded in your cultural identity.
Okay.
There's that very fine line between being a global citizen, keeping up with the trends so that we can keep up with other countries, not in all facets, in economics,
Mm-hmm.
in all facets good, but at the same time, I think it's all the more important that we stand firm on our identity. So I think being nationalistic still matters now, even when you're trying to be a global citizen. Yeah.
So, when you say you're a global citizen, what does it mean? Somebody ng global citizen, there, like, I mean, like, have I not been an inhabitant of
Globe.
this place called Earth since I was born? Like, aren't I already a global citizen? Or what do you mean? What does that mean to be a global citizen?
I think what I understand, being a global citizen has to do with being engaged with amalganap with what's happening all over the world also, and understanding that everyone is interconnected. We don't live under the rock unless siguro Jiggy, you're really totally off the grid, self-sufficient, living on your own. Like a lot of there's some tribes gapon in the world that are like that, don't
Okay.
totally
Okay.
cut off from society. So they're not global citizens in such a way that they do not have any sort of exchange with outside of their nation, or outside of their tribe for that matter. But being a global citizen, I think, is acknowledging, but that the world is, it's this fast-paced progress and change, and then it needs us to be interconnected with other individuals from other parts of the
Mm.
world. So
More than a global citizen, di ay?
that's how I understand
Mm.
it. Yeah.
Okay.
In
You're familiar with the butterfly effect, right? Nakadug naman siguro
Mhm.
ka na, di ba nga, a butterfly flaps its wings and then it starts changes all over the world, right?
Yeah.
And what it represents, Mangot, is that whatever it is that you do here matters not just to your country but to the whole entire planet. All of our problems now have become global in nature. We already understood how a pandemic, because ang ato ang transportation system in the world is so kaning amazing that we can fly anywhere in the world in an airplane or in a
Yeah.
ship, or our transportation on land is also very efficient. So sayo na lang yung kaayo magda o disease, right? So grabe kay ta ka interconnected, right? Kung basig na yung masakit diri
Yeah.
sa Cebu, right? For example, unya dili siya mularga pero na siya nakaistorya nga mularga, di ba? So inig human nilag istorya mularga siya, mo board sa eroplano, pag human masakit na sa do ang
Yeah.
tibok eroplano, ang tibok nasod nga iyang giadtuan, di ba? So grabe jud kayo ka interconnected. Climate change, right? We all know nga dili man na mahimo nga there's a Philippine solution. There's no Philippine solution of climate change. It has to be a
A
global
global.
solution, di ba? So the internet, right? It's interconnected, right? And then we all are benefiting from the internet. In fact, the Philippines is the number one using country for Facebook, right? So grabe kita ka interconnected. So
Yeah.
when we move, when we act, uh, we should think about the globe. Pero that doesn't mean nga dili ta mo asikaso sa ato ang own backyard. Kay kung na ka, for example, let's talk about backyard topics. Let's just say garbage, right?
Okay.
Kung mulabay ka og basura sa imuhang basig pataka lang kaglabay sa basura sa daan, right? You know, the bad thing is not just happening in your barangay, in your ciudad, or in your country. The thing that you're doing actually affects the whole entire world. So I think it's just a mindset, bitaw. Mindset ba kay kanam kung nationalism, although I have nothing against it, it's just
Yeah.
again, just like most things in life, these are just narratives. These are stories, right? Okay, so the idea of a nation, there was no idea of country. There was no idea of nation before. You know what I mean? Like it was just one whole entire planet, and we just came up with the idea of nations, right? Nindot man na siya. Nindot man na siya nga natay common identity, but I think it's more of a tool for our leaders ba nga for them to have a kind of identity ba, para dili sad sila mapalabian og kaning og tanaw lapas sa ilang nasod kay like lisod na sa gayo kung ilahang mga tao sa ilang nasod mga globalist poros, di ba? Kaya they're not gonna care about what's happening as much as they should in their own neck of the woods, right?
Yeah, yeah, I agree with that. I think when it's easy to find like the utilitarian or the use of nationalism and how it plays a role in society, and getting people to being united and understanding that what we do here
Mm.
affects us in
Correct, yeah,
general.
yeah.
So I have no question with that. Like once I use, say gamit gid sa being nationalistic. I also have no question as to if it's relevant nowadays. I feel like all the more it is relevant. Pero I think the bigger question then, Jiggy, is how do we practice it manggidi because we rarely think about like we don't wake up every day and think like how do I practice being nationalistic today? Like nobody actually ever thinks of that. Nobody
Correct, yeah.
actually thinks,
Yeah, these are just ideas that we're
that.
throwing out, right? That
Yeah.
like all of these words that we come up with, like nationalism, globalism, and whatnot, right? But I think of course words do not sprout from out of nowhere, right? Words happen. Words are invented, are created because of something that actually happened
Yeah.
somewhere, right? So kanang nationalism, of course, we all know what it means, and what it means to practice it. And
Yeah.
globalism is a relatively new word. I'm sure before the word nationalism was invented. I think the word globalism, I mean, was invented maybe after the word nationalism. I don't know. I'm not sure about the etymology and the
Yeah,
history of those two words. But what I'm saying is, again, mahimo lang tag mga words good nga to mean something, to
yeah,
express something, right? And whether we practice it or not, well, it's a matter of opinion.
yeah. And how also you're gonna be able to practice it would also matter, and it would vary from person to person. Just
Correct. Yeah.
funny, yesterday, I bought coffee niya. Diba, it's Independence Day, and I remember I just laughed at myself. The coffee was my favorite order. Basta coffee, Spanish latte,
Mm-hmm.
and I remember I was telling the miss like, Miss, one Spanish latte. Then I said it out loud. Hala, I was like, hala, Spanish latte. Like it's not nationalistic. And then she just laughed. She just giggled. But it's so funny about how like, no, even on the day of our kanang independence, I'm still I'm still supporting colonizers by drinking Spanish latte.
It's those damn colonizers, right?
I felt like my ancestors were looking down on me,
Yeah,
we did.
napo yung misconception kaning Justine ba nga kung bisda ka, pasabot niya
Mm.
na nga maayo ka mo binisaya, di ba? Di ba?
Gift.
Kung bisda ka, kinanglan nga sige kag binisaya, right?
Ay, English, kay Bisaya ta!
Mo lagi,
Ay,
mo lagi pero di ba?
Ay, English, kay Bisaya ta!
O lagi. Sumuka na niya, oy, grabe ha. Anyway, but that doesn't necessarily mean nga kinanglan ka magbinisaya ka para matawagan ka og bisdak, di ba? Kay part of the Bisaya or the Bisdak identity is actually kung hunaw-hunaw mo mayo mo sa tamong in English, di ba?
Yeah,
Di ba that's
also
part of who we are, right?
Yeah. Pero I think that's why the definition of bisdak, it's also ever changing.
Okay.
Murag, how do we practice being bisdak today? Does it only mean kung may kamusti kong Bisaya niya?
Mm.
Kita Jiggy, we're kind of guilty of that baya nga. Especially sa TMC, we really want to foster like greater love for our culture as mga Bisaya.
Mhm.
We want to make this a platform for Bisaya artists, for anything that has to do with Bisaya nga.
Correct.
Proudly showing it to the world ba nga, this is who we are, and that ngingi kayo ta, and we have so much to offer.
Mhm.
But at the same time, it's also difficult for us because with our line of work, you being in media for a long time, and even when we host, most of the time we're asked to host in English also.
Mhm.
Pero I like how mao na siya with this show, we make an effort to learn to speak Bisaya and
Correct,
to
yeah.
say whatever. There are words nga atong i-try og translate bisag walay translation, atong i-try og explain. So I think that's important too. We're trying, guys.
Yeah.
Nanikamot mi ni JD.
The idea is we try, right? In fact, I communicated with our friends from the University of Cebu. The University of the Philippines, Cebu. Unya nanguntahan ako na nabay kurso diha chancellor, the chancellor of UP nga kaning binisaya. Ningon siya nga naaman jig pero dili kuno kanang binisaya nga about language or using binisaya kuan kuno Bisaya literature kuno. I think that's good enough. So I'm gonna figure out a way to enroll in that subject. But at least we have a more academic foundation with our binisaya ba, because kanang atong binisaya man good Justine, aside from being a picky, ang atong binisaya kaning slang na bitaw, kaning pasabot akong slang is dili slang in English nga slang, kanang bang street binisaya ba, street bistak, dili bitaw formal binisaya.
Yeah, exactly. It's not like academic type. No?
Correct.
But I like how you mentioned a couple, I think yesterday, but the other day you were talking about like, what if you were to feed AI, and ask it to help you learn Bisaya? And I think it's a brilliant idea.
Yeah.
You can use AI magid to help us study Bisaya. Ang thing is you have to find lang gyud mga soft copies of kanay mong gingon ng Bisaya literature, Bisaya language books.
Yeah.
Feed it to the AI para it can help you learn it. It can help you translate. Kasi sometimes, or most of the time, mo search tag translation sa internet, it come out or doesn't come up man right away. But AI can help us with that. So maybe that's what I'm gonna do. If ikaw mo enroll ka sa mga classes, I'm gonna try to find sources or basin na kay mga books dito Jiggy nga ma-find in the classes that you join, nga mga online or PDF copies that I can feed to our AI para magamito nato for the show.
Okay, I just asked a question ni Meta AI.
Oh.
Do you know how to speak Bisaya? Ang tubag ni AI. Oo. Ako nakakasabot og Bisaya.
Oh
Ako
my.
nakakasabot. Bisaya is an Austronesian language spoken in the Visayas region of the Philippines. While I'm not fluent, I can carry to respond in basic Bisaya phrases. Give it a try. Let's chat in Bisaya. Would you like to talk in Bisaya? I say, yes. Okay. Yes. Okay. I'll ask him a question. Guapo
Yeah.
ko. I'll ask him, guapo ko.
Okay, okay,
Okay.
go. What it says.
Maujud. Or pwede na. You're handsome enough. But honestly, you're asking the right questions and that's what matters. Unsay sunod nga pangutana? Mahiwan ang Bisaya. Mahiwan ang Bisaya. Mahayong Bisaya si Meta
Not
AI.
so bad.
Not so bad, right? Not so
Not
bad.
so bad.
That's
How
good.
much pa ato pag yun na i-train og maayo,
Ato ning
we feel-
train be like a dog. Let's train it, right?
So that we can also learn from it.
Y-
Ang
y-
batian is if it gets better than us.
Unsa?
Ang batian is if it gets way better than us. Like,
Maog yun. Mora bay naka ngilngig or nakaapan aning AI, di ba? Kay it will surely get better than us. Right? And mura og daghan na kaayong mga interviews nga ako basahan madunggan sa mga podcasts and sa mga news articles nga ilahang prediction about AI ba is just mura og I would probably say appropriately scary ba ang
yeah.
ang ilahang mga ilang mga diagnosis of AI now and the future AI murag kuyawan sila ba nga daghan kaayong ma-disenfranchise mga trabaho nga mga mawagtang and at the
Yeah.
same time kanang general AI nga posible yun nga it can think on its own na bitaw and will not need human beings anymore.
Yeah, it seems like a dystopian film in the making. But for now, I'm just hoping that we're able to use it to our advantage. But there are so many points that you brought up sometimes in our conversations that you would tell me, you know what, it would be cool if AI was used in this industry, and the country solutions nga, it's very promising ba. So let's see if society would not if we use it in the right way.
Correct. Naay bag-o nga libro nga nigawas lang you should consider reading. Hold on, let me just get the title of that book.
Mm.
The book of the title of the podcast is Countdown to Super Intelligence, but he has a book. He has a book called AI 2027. He'll be talking about the alignment in that book, the alignment problem. Unsa man ang alignment problem? Kanang alignment problem is, will AI be aligned with humanity? Muna siya alignment, muna ang alignment problem ba karon man gud all bets are off man kay murang there's like a AI race similar to the arms race back during the Cold War nga naglumbaanay ni ang China ug ang West of developing artificial intelligence, right? Although saba kayo ang West aninya with ChatGPT and the other brands of AI, but all of a sudden DeepSeek showed up from out of nowhere, right? And people are saying is that it is just as good. So murag na ratol na ni ang mga taga West. So mura sila kung tagaan mo guardrails sa usa ka butang, it'll hinder you from developing and pushing the envelope. So murag wild west po ni sa Amerika, especially ang AI development, right? So kuyaw kayo ba?
Yeah. There's still, I feel like the general public knows very little pa about how much of our data can be used or is already being used by AI.
Mhm.
No, there are jokes, there are mga memes in social media bitaw, like some random person in China probably knows about my whole family history na.
Correct,
Knows
yeah.
my deepest, darkest secrets
Mhm.
because I tell everything to AI, knows my address, knows
Yeah.
this and
Yeah.
so
And
we don't know how this information are stored, processed. Yeah.
And it's really scary ba nga. There's a thing, an entity that knows more about you than your mother, than your father, than your parents, right? It's strange, but I can tell you now with almost 100% certainty nga
Mm.
Facebook knows more about you than your mom and your dad. 100%. For me, I believe in that because
Yeah,
AI, Facebook knows what you like and dislike. You know
exactly.
what things that you see, your eyes uh, open wide, right? And what things that you see, you squint and you dislike, right? Nakabasa
Yeah,
na ang Facebook ni Ana na factor in na nila. They've already inputted it in their database. So mas makailag yun ang Facebook or on social media, Nemo, more than your mom and your dad. Isn't that kind of scary?
it is scary. Not only does Facebook or AI or Meta gets to know all about your consumer behavior on what are items that you like, what it even has already a glimpse of your personality. I would
Correct.
really
Yeah.
say
Yeah.
it has things of like how you think, how you behave, what makes you tick, as you mentioned, your preferences, because we feed it man every time that we engage with it. Every time we like a post, every
Mm-hmm.
time we scroll by another post, it already gets a glimpse. Okay,
Mm.
how this person would react in a situation or not.
Yeah.
And then it can also then, with all that information of it, can make a prediction of what you are most likely or more likely to do,
Correct. Yeah.
or how how you think. So it's
Mm-hmm.
actually deeper than we think. No, it's
Mm-hmm.
not just like the internet or AI or Meta knows my preferences sa mga posts lang.
Mm-hmm.
Deeper than that, because the things that we feed it, it could even know already as to like our tendencies, like personality wise,
Mm-hmm.
like psychologically wise, like if it gets to study you long enough lang and you engage with it long
Mm-hmm.
enough,
Mm.
especially with the way that we do Jiggy every day, mag-engage man gyud ta sa social media.
Correct. Yeah.
So it really knows us deeper than we think. We
Yeah.
know
Yeah. I
it
know.
already knows our personality.
Yeah. Which
Diba?
which makes the name Deep Seek even more ominous,
La.
right?
Yeah, exactly. I like the word.
Deep
It is
Seek.
ominous. It's ominous. So I'm just waiting for like Netflix to release more
and and
shows about
and see, the thing is,
AI.
this is not one of those first world problems, right? In fact, this is the kind of problem that seems first worldly, but in
But
reality it's actually people, and in the third world, people, the least of us, who will be greatly affected because it'll be their jobs that will be replaced, right? And they don't have enough skill sets. Was like enough training ba nga makaapas sa the technological advancements of them being replaced by a frigging machine. So this is not some nebulous first world
yeah,
problem and we're just talking out of our butts, right? This is real on the ground conversation about what is to come. And I think we should be talking about this constantly. Pahinumduman na to atong mga kaigsuunan nga kinahanglan you have to equip yourselves with the right knowledge, the right education if you can, to be able to be ready for this new world that is about to
yeah,
come.
yeah. And also, I think aside from that, no, nga, we have to practice staying relevant despite AI. Important sa nga katunod sa nato what AI is really about. So I
Correct, yeah.
like nga mga suggestions of mga
Mm-hmm.
podcasts, shows. Pero if there's one thing you could suggest to our listeners, Jiggy, nga,
Mm-hmm.
if they were like they don't really know much about AI, na ilang nahibawaan is just like
Ay!
ChatGPT.
Ano, ayam ng AI, di ba?
Like what if they only know about like ChatGPT,
Yeah.
GPT
Yeah,
rather?
yeah.
Where should they go, or like what book or podcast can you suggest nga it's like beginner friendly to really understand someone getting an AI and like what are we supposed to do with it? Any
Yeah,
suggestions?
and I think one of the things that it's important ba nga especially if as like a baseline education ba is really skepticism, is really just asking questions bitaw. I think that's really the most important part. We don't even have to think about kaning
Sources
specific courses about technology, about
or sources. Oh, weird.
about AI and all that stuff. It's just basic skepticism, basic kaning asking questions. No, you don't believe stuff that you see just because it feels good, just because you feel like it's beneficial to you, right? You've got to ask. Importante kaya na siya nga baseline information, a baseline knowledge. Nga mangutana lang ka good, because I think the word is not skepticism. The word is curiosity. Mangutana lang ka. Mangutana lang ka
Okay.
nga, tinuod ba ni siya or dili? Kung di ka kasabot, mangita kang information nga mas makasabot ka, di ba?
Yeah, so stay curious
Yes,
question, and
stay
that's what we're
curious.
trying
Yeah.
to do here. sa TMC. If you notice, guys, every day with our conversations, mo na mangutana gid si Jiggy sa ikaw ni Saita Sugbo.
Mm.
Because again, we're not like all knowing,
Mhm.
and we're not like the type of individuals na when we see one source of information on the internet, mutuod ay ni.
Correct, yeah.
So we need to really get a wide grasp ba through people's
Correct.
opinion. So salamat sa tanan ni Joy nato sa atong
Mm.
YouTube and TikTok
Thank you so
live.
much. And before I
So-
go, Justine, I just wanted to say this one last line ba. Nga importante kaayo nga we have to understand nga we're only good at very few things. All of us. I mean everybody, 8 billion of us, okay? We're only good at a few things. And in most things, we are stunningly ignorant. Okay? Stunningly ignorant. We're only good at small things. Gamay ra kayo nga butang sa kalibutan nga experts ta nga maayo kay tas tanan. In most things, we are stunningly ignorant. That's why we defer to experts. That's why we defer to institutions. That's why we defer to people who have the experience, right? Because we are stunningly ignorant in a lot of things, a majority of things, and good at just very few things. I think that's an important note.
Yeah, I love that. And kami diri sa TMC, guys, di jud mi mahadlok og admit ana nga we are ignorant at most
Stunningly ignorant.
Stunningly ignorant. I was hoping you built up my hope. Na pag-ingon ni mo stunningly, I thought you're about to say like stunningly, talented. At pag-ingon ni mo ignorant, para ko, yeah. So guys, help us to not feed our ignorance, but curb our ignorance rather. Let's get to learn about more things. Join us on our next conversations here. Sa
Thank you,
Tapos
Justine.
Amor.
How does your weekend look like, by the way?
My weekend is good. What do we have? I'll be spending time with my family lang.
Okay,
throughout the
that's cool. Okay.
Yeah, and then I have an event also tomorrow. I'll be hosting an event. So
Which event is this? I forgot. I have to host.
there's a party that I'm asked to host
Wow. What
tomorrow.
it's like a dance party or a private party?
It's a private party.
Okay. All right.
I'm
Are you going to be
for that-
singing? Are you going to be singing too?
Nah, no, Jiggy. I feel like this is also the thing, Jiggy. I'm hesitant to like mo kanta while mo host ba kay mo ana nag sila nga kapuya ikaw na gani ang go-host kanta-kanta pa
You know what? You know what? You know what? There are several hosts in Cebu now who actually also sing. That's actually part of
That's the thing.
It's a thing. So make it your thing because you're an amazing singer. Please check her out on Spotify. Just look for her, Justine Narvios. She has the what is that? The 25th anniversary of Waves. Was that?
25th. Yeah, I have a song that was out last year.
Okay.
But yes, if you would like to listen to my music, then go check it out or listen to 105.1 TMC. That's the best of us, the number one radio station that plays all local music.
Thank you so much, Justine. You take care of yourself, okay?
Bye, Jiggy.
Have
See
a
you
great
next
weekend and good luck on your event this weekend.
Yeah, thank you, Jiggy. You too. See you Monday.
Okay, bye-bye.
Di na tani dugayon pa